Has your back started hurting a bit more since this whole work at home thing started? Or maybe you already had a back issue. Well, today we're going to dive into what you can do about it. And I'm going to give you actionable advice here. This isn't going to be just talk. I'm going to walk you through some things that you can do right now. Well, not right this second, but during this episode that will help you with your back pain or your sore back or your achy back or anything like that, your stiff back. What is up, my friend, and welcome to the Legendary Life Podcast. I'm health expert Ted Ryce, coach to entrepreneurs, executives, and other high-performing professionals. And what we do here at Legendary Life is break down science-based information on how to lose fat, prevent disease, and live a long, healthy, legendary life. So if that's what you're into, you are in the right place. Click that subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts so that every time one of my episodes goes live, you'll be the first to know. And before we jump into back pain today and have me walk you through some things that you can do during this episode, I want to talk to you about our fasting challenge. We are doing a 5-day fasting challenge. And if you are interested in doing this with me, go to legendarylifepodcast.com/fasting and you'll receive all the details about the fasting challenge, when it starts, which is September 12th. And you'll be able to get a special code that will give you 25% off the fasting mimicking diet kit that we're going to use, because we're not going to do a typical fast. We're going to do something that's got some science backing it, and we'll all be doing it for the first time. So it's really exciting. Let's move on to back pain, what to do about it, how to manage it, or even prevent it while working from home. First, a couple of stats. Back pain is the most common type of chronic pain problem, and it's the most common medical disorder in industrialized societies. Makes you go, what's happening in those non-industrialized societies? Well, that's some of what we're going to talk about here. Another fun fact is that back pain is also the chief cause of disability among those younger than 45 years old. And I have a personal thing with back pain. I'm going to share this story very briefly because I could take up the whole episode taking you through this. But at the end of 2016, I got a very bad injury. I herniated a disc in my back. There was a car accident involved. And if you've been listening for a long time, you know there was a car accident involved and some disc herniations in my neck. So neck and back pain are things that I'm not a stranger to. And if you've been listening to the show while I was in Thailand, I had a massage, that Thai massage, where the Thai massage lady, massage therapist, although I hesitate to call her that because she was not so professional. She was stepping on my pelvis and I was in a lot of pain and she was just kind of laughing about it. Typically, I've had a lot of massages in Thailand. The majority are great, but in the south of Thailand, in Phuket, they tend not to take it so seriously. You've got to go to a reputable place. I just went to a place down the street. Anyway, because there are massage places everywhere there, in case you've never been. I found myself hobbling back to my condominium, and the next day I woke up, I got out of bed, and I stood up, felt a sharp pain, and I dropped to the floor. I had aggravated this disc injury again, and if you listen to my first, now this was in 2018, if I remember correctly. It didn't happen last year, it happened the year before, so 2018, towards the end of 2018. But I injured myself, I believe, a year before that, and it was hellish. It's how I started meditating. because I was on the floor. I couldn't even lay in bed, couldn't sleep. And we're going to be talking about sleep a little bit and chronic pain and how to deal with it. And so what I want you to know is that I'm no stranger to back pain. I've had massive pain that kept me up, had to take painkillers for a little bit just to get through the day. It was brutal. And the brutal part about the type of back pain I'm talking about is the neurogenic pain, the nerve pain. So if you have localized pain in your back, it could be nerve pain, could be a pinched nerve, a disc impinging is the correct terminology on the nerve. But if you've had a full-blown injury like I've had, you felt that pain down your leg. And boy, is it intense. Some of the worst pain you can have. And so I'm just sort of telling this story because I want you to understand that what I'm about to share with you, it's stuff that I've personally used and still use to manage this area. My back started irritating me again recently with the whole COVID thing because I found myself, like many people, sitting on my butt. And, the nerves started getting irritated again too. And I had it under control, and this whole COVID thing kind of brought it back. We'll talk about, how we'll talk a little bit about stress, not too much, but we'll talk about how all the factors we're going to discuss create a situation that makes your back and even other areas of your body more prone to pain. So a couple other things here. Another thing I want to bring to your attention is the model that we're going to be discussing. It's super sexy and just rolls off the tongue. It's called the Biopsychosocial Model. There's the Biopsychosocial Model of health, and we're going to be talking about the Biopsychosocial Model of pain. And what the hell does that mean? Biopsychosocial. So there are biological reasons for pain. It means there's psychological reasons for pain. It means there's social reasons for pain. Does that make any sense whatsoever to you? So we'll talk briefly about some of this stuff, but I'm going to keep more on the action-oriented side. But I will tell you this, if you're like biopsychosocial, how the hell does my social life affect my pain levels? I want to answer that right now because I'm not going to go over it in the listicle episode here that I've mentioned. But what we know is that our social interactions help keep inflammation at bay. This is not woo-woo. It's not what you'd hear. I almost named some names. It's not what you'd hear on other podcasts. If you want to lower inflammation, just start talking to people, right? It sounds like something that you'd hear on some of the more, I guess, famous podcasts that talk about biohacking, but it really isn't. It really isn't. There's strong scientific evidence that shows our social relationships help contribute to a healthy body and a healthy immune system and help keep inflammation at bay. So what can we do with that? Well, if you're experiencing feelings of loneliness or of social isolation, or if you're socially isolated, which so many of us are now, just understand that can be contributing to your pain. I'm not going to talk too much more about this. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more, but I feel like if I talk too much about this other stuff, you're like, so talk to people so that my knee injury feels better. We'll talk about that later. So let's talk about some things that you can do right now. The first thing I just need to cover, because it's the thing that we just need to cover, is basic ergonomics. For example, are you sitting right now? What I want you to pay attention, I am, by the way. So what I want you to pay attention to is, do you have support are you supporting the natural curve of your spine when you sit? office chairs should, or your home chair that you're using in your, in these work from home days, these remote work days, should have a lumbar support that help a natural curve at the belly button level, a natural forward curve at the belly button level. So what you can do is you can put a pillow or rolled up towel right behind your back to achieve this effect. So in other words, have a seat on a chair. Again, as I told you at the beginning, I'm not going to just throw some stuff at you. I want to take you and guide you through some things that you can do to help improve this. So right now, have a seat on your office chair if you can, or have a seat anywhere. So I want you to pay attention to the position of your back. And what I want you to pay attention to is place a finger or a couple of fingers on your belly button. If that belly button if you're hunched over and that belly button is, you have to kind of dig your fingers in there to get to your belly button, you're not sitting properly. You're not supporting the natural curve of your spine. So what I want you to do is I want you to find, if you don't have a lumbar support, which I can't recommend one. I don't travel with one, I'll be honest. But what I do is I put a pillow or rolled up towel behind my back to help push, to support that natural curvature so that belly button comes forward. All right. So there's a natural forward curve at the belly button level. Another thing that you should do with your chair is adjust the height of the chair. So right now I'm sitting in an office chair, and what I want is my knees at a 90-degree angle, and I want my feet flat on the floor. So if you're, one problem with this chair is sometimes it sinks down, and so my thighs, my knees won't be bent at a 90-degree angle. They'll be pushed up. In fact, I'll do that right now. All right. So now this feels awful. It puts too much stress on your spine. And so what I did was I lowered my seat as much as I can. You can even experiment with that. And what happens is it places more strain on your pelvis and makes it harder to keep that natural curve of your spine. So what you want to do is you want to lift up. I got to adjust the height of the chair. Oops. Rolling around here. You know how office chairs do. And so now I'm in a better position where my knees are bent at about, roughly a 90-degree angle, and I'm sitting up. Now, if your feet kind of dangle, what you can do is you can rest your feet on a prop like a footrest or even a phone book for extra support in case your feet dangle. If your chair doesn't fit you properly and you're not able to sit with your knees bent at 90 degrees, grab your chair and get out on your balcony and just throw it as far as you can. Make sure nobody's down there before you do that. So just seeing if you're paying attention. But don't do that, please. It's a joke in case you're listening for the first time. But what you want to do is you want to invest in a good chair, right? Seriously. If I know things might be tough, but if you're working from home, don't make it tougher for yourself by screwing up your back because you won't invest in a chair. Or you could experiment, obviously, with boosting yourself up a bit. The next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that your armrests are at a 90-degree angle. This will encourage you to hold your shoulders low, which will support your upper back. So you don't want your arms to be hunched up, and you don't want the strain to be on them either. Now, right now, I have armrests on this chair. I've got my arms at 90 degrees. I'm sitting up nice and tall with good posture. I want you to do that as well. And if you take away, you can also remove the armrests as well. But if they're not supporting you properly, either adjust them or remove them. And the other thing that I can tell you to do is keep your monitor about arm's length away. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, you want to keep it about arm's length away and at eye level or slightly below, because this will encourage you to sit back instead of leaning forward and straining your neck. And If you find yourself squinting at your monitor, adjust the lighting to reduce the strain on your eyes. So if you're squinting and leaning in, try to make your computer and your office and your chair fit you instead of you trying to fit yourself to the chair and the office setup. The other thing I would say, I'm not a huge fan of standing desks. What I'm a huge fan of are adjustable desks so that you can stand sometimes and sit sometimes. I don't want you standing for hours. There's health issues associated with that. And we don't want you sitting for hours. If we can get you standing and then sitting and then moving and standing and sitting, it's better to adjust your position. Even with what we talked about with the good posture, what you want to do is adjust your position. You don't want to stay in the same position and fight to stay there all the time. You will fatigue. But if you can change your position, if you can take breaks, right? Now that we got that basic ergonomics, the basic stuff out of the way, and I guess I'll say one more thing. If you have a problem reminding yourself to get up, what I would do is set an alarm. If you have an iPhone, obviously you can set the reminders there. But if you have my Oura Ring sends me notifications. Also, if you have the watch, Apple Watch, I tried using mine. I don't really like it. It runs out of a charge too often. Or using a Fitbit. I love those. I try to get my clients who live sedentary lifestyles or live the office lifestyle rather, to get something to remind them to get up and move. So if you're having trouble with that, I personally recommend a Fitbit because the charge lasts longer. But if you love your Apple Watch, go for it. Personally, I use I don't need to be reminded. I'll be honest. I don't need to be reminded. It's hard for me to sit in one place for long periods of time. So I get up often. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get into the things that hardly anybody will talk about. So what I want to let you know is that when most people feel back pain, what they do is they do stretching. Oh, I got to stretch my hamstrings. My back's tight. Wrong thing to do, okay? There's nothing wrong with stretching in general. I personally don't do that much of it, which may surprise some of you with all the injuries I have, but it is not the thing to do. So if stretching isn't the thing to do, what do you do instead? And I'll talk about why this is the case. But what we want to do is we want to do stabilization exercises for the spine, hips, and potentially even your neck. Now, why am I saying that? You're probably thinking, well, I already go to the gym. I do my cardio. I do my strength training. Why do I need to do more exercises? That doesn't make any sense. I'm already so tight from all the exercises I'm doing. So let's talk about something just very briefly. I'm not going to go into this too much, but I want you to listen and pay attention here. You're not stretching your muscles when you do stretching. No, I don't think so, Ted. When I am stretching my hamstring now and I feel the stretch. Oh gosh, how many conversations. I'm so glad I don't do personal training anymore because I would have these one-on-one. I'm like, you're not stretching your hamstrings, man. Okay? It's not how it works, bro. And you're like, well, wait a minute. But what do I feel then? I feel a stretch. Here's what you're feeling. Okay? You are feeling things like your muscles, you're feeling, okay, let me say it like this. Let's say you try to stretch your hamstrings because your back's stiff and you're like, oh, my physical therapist, who's not that good, or my doctor, my orthopedic surgeon who just wants to, cut me open and so he can make another payment on his mansion or Ferrari, or support his mistress in a nice luxury condo, told me that stretching is really important. Listen, I ain't no doctor. I ain't here to tell you not to listen to your doctor, but I am going to tell you the reality about stretching. So when you try to stretch a muscle, what happens is you're not stretching it because the length doesn't change. what happens, what I mean by that is your muscles don't get longer from stretching. So you may say, okay, so I can't touch my toes, and then I'll do a stretch for a minute, and then now I can touch my toes. So my hamstrings got longer. No, they didn't. Here's what happened. You have a nervous system that is responsible for setting the tone in your muscles. And you have things like Golgi tendon organs, and more relevant to what we're talking about, muscle spindles. Muscle spindles, what they do is they fire and tighten up as you start stretching. And I'm not going to go too deep into the science, frankly, because I don't know it. But what I will tell you is from what I remember from when I used to really study this stuff is that if you're having problems with tight muscles, what the issue is instability. What does that mean? You have an unstable situation in your spine. And your brain, and I'm going to paraphrase. Your brain says, "Man, this guy is a real idiot. He messed up his back. He sits too much. He tried to deadlift too much weight, tried to do bench press, and his back is all messed up. Here's what we're going to do." So he doesn't do anything else stupid. We're going to make his hamstrings really tight to sort of protect the area, because we've got a real chimpanzee on our hands here with the level of intelligence that's going on. I'm just kind of having some fun here. So, and a little bit of projection, meaning like I resemble that remark. So what happens is your brain, your central nervous system, realizes, and maybe not even at the brain level, it may be at the spinal cord level. I don't remember all the neurophysiology involved, but what happens is your back tightens up as a result of the instability, trying to protect the area. Just like if you pulled a muscle, if you injured a joint, what happens? It gets real tight around that injury. You're like, man, it's just constantly tight. Well, it's trying to protect the area from getting further injured. To cause it to release, yes, you can massage, you can foam roll, you can take a lacrosse ball in there, and it can loosen things up, and stretch, but then it gets tightened up, and then you have to do it the next day and the next day and the next day. And you're doing this constant stretching and foam rolling and lacrosse ball, right? How can we get rid of the need for that lacrosse ball, for the stretches? And we are going to do something right now. In fact, guess what I have in between my knees? Well, sorry, can't help myself today. So here's what I want you to do. I have a yoga block, all right, is what I have in between my knees. So what I want you to do is this. I want you to grab a pillow, or a yoga block. It would be better if you have it. You could use a book too, a solid hardback book. But what I want you to do is I want you to grab something like that. So if you're driving, obviously you can't do this. You're going to have to wait till you get to the office. So what I want you to do, if you are able to grab this, is I want you to pause this podcast so you can go and grab it and then come back and sit down. So make sure you pause this, go grab something and sit down as I walk you through it. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to place the pillow or the yoga block or whatever you've got. Probably a pillow is going to work better than a book. A book's going to be a little bit thin. But what you're going to do is you're going to put the yoga block or pillow in between your knees, and you're going to sit up nice and tall with that good posture that we talked about. So you can even do this exercise like I do. I do coaching calls, I do my group call, and I do these exercises sometimes. So I'm sitting up nice and tall. I've got that natural curve in my spine. My legs are at the 90-degree angle because I'm sitting on an office chair that's set up for me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze that yoga block, and I'm squeezing probably about 70% of my max. So around 60 to 80% of your max. Squeeze and hold for 10 seconds. Do you feel the burning in the adductor muscles and your inner thigh muscles? The ones, if you're a woman, these would be the muscles that get used on the adductor machine or on the no machine, as one of my female personal trainer friends likes to call it, the yeses and the nos. I'll let you ponder that, what that means. But what you're doing right now is you're holding, and it's over 10 seconds, and I want you to relax. And I want you to squeeze again, holding for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Keep squeezing. 9, 10. Now, if you're really weak here, you might even cramp. If that's the case, back off on the amount that you're squeezing. Squeeze again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And let's do one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, if you want, press pause and do 10 reps. And I want you, after you do this, or you may feel it now, I want you to do this. Actually, I should have had you come up and try to touch your toes. So, just thinking about this on the fly, but what you can do is not believe me, but what you can do is try to touch your toes. So stand up, try to touch your toes. And also, I want you to feel how your back feels and rate your pain, your back pain on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being no pain, 10 being I needed surgery yesterday. I needed an orthopedic surgeon yesterday. So rate your back pain, back achiness, because some people say, well, it's not really pain, but it's tightness or stiffness. Well, that's the same thing, okay? Just rate it as a 2 or 3 or whatever instead of a 6 or 7 or 8, right? But rate it, whatever you want to call it, stiffness, pain, achiness, whatever, rate it. And what I want you to do is I'm going to explain this exercise. I'm going to tell you a couple of others that you can do. And I want you to have a test move, like touching your toes. And I want you to have a subjective rating. This is what I do with clients, but I walk them through this process, obviously. And I've been doing this process for years. I'll say, hey, what is your pain on a scale 1 to 10? Okay, what is a movement that is causing you to feel the tightness or the achiness or the pain or whatever word you want to describe it? And we'll just say, okay, we'll touch your toes, right? For you, it might be something different, but since I don't know you, touch your toes, right? Or find a different move that can elicit some discomfort, tightness, pain, whatever you want to call it. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to do another set of these adductor squeezes and see if you can't create a difference. Now, when you do them, again, make sure you use good posture. Make sure you count and don't rush the seconds. Make sure it's 10 seconds. Make sure you do 3 to 10 reps. And if they're feeling super good, you can do up to 2 or 3 sets. So this is an example of a spinal stabilization exercise. In this case, you're working your adductors, which helps stabilize your pelvis, which is, of course, part of your lumbopelvic complex, right? So another thing we can do is if you have a mini band. Now, if you have a mini band, pause this and go get it. Now, if you don't know what a mini band is, what it is those, you see a lot of, they're usually used by women. Unfortunately, men don't typically either get them or know what to do with them. Women actually, because of some of the movements you learn in classes, they typically have these. They're typically more aware of some of these exercises that we're going through. And if I remember correctly, women get injured less than men. So if you're a guy and you have a wife or a girlfriend who keeps some of her workout stuff over at your house, she probably has some of these. Go and get it. And now that you've gotten it, what I want you to do is I'm doing this with you. I want you to put your feet through and place the band just above your knees. So they're just a few inches above the knees. You don't have to, be so specific, but I will tell you the closer. So I'm sitting down and the band is on my upper thigh, but just an inch or so above my knees. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to first get into good posture. So the same sort of posture that we talked about in the beginning with the setting yourself up ergonomically. And what you're going to do, you're going to space your feet apart about, so the band is pulling your knees together. So what I want you to do is stay relaxed, except for the good posture, and walk your feet out about, for me, I'm about 18 inches or so apart. That feels good. In other words, about hip width or slightly wider. And so keeping that good posture with the foot position you have, what I want you to do is I want you to spread your knees apart. As soon as you spread them, you're going to feel the muscles of your hips turn on, and you're going to hold it for 10 seconds like we've been doing. Now, if you grabbed one of the lighter bands, you may find that it's too light and you need a heavier band. So pause this and go grab the heavier band. If you grab the heavier band, I'm using the black band in this case, which is the heaviest band, the extra heavy, which is what you want to kind of work up to, especially if you're well trained. And by the way, you can relax it if you haven't already. But you want to get the right resistance. If it's too light, you're not going to feel it. If it's too heavy, it might make your back worse. We want the right amount of resistance. So that was one rep. Now we're going to do it again. We're going to open up the knees. Now we have the right resistance because you've changed the band if you needed to. And I should do a video and send this to you if you're on the list, which I may do. And I'm again, holding it for 10 seconds and relaxing. And let's do one more rep. And so only relax for a second or two in between reps and hold it for that full 10 seconds. Okay. You'll feel it starts burning. It feels easy at first, but the third rep or fourth rep, I'm actually doing another one, starts burning. And again, make sure your posture is good. You're in a good position here. And you should really start to feel, if you have the right amount of resistance, if you're in the right position, you really start to feel the burning happening at your hips. Now, what you can do if you want, you can pause this and do up to 10 reps. You can even do a second or even a third set. And again, I want you to, after you've done that, I want you to come back to that test position. The test position would be the one that I recommended was touching your toes. You'll probably feel that you can go lower even though you didn't do any stretching. And if you pay attention and rate your pain compared to before you started and how you feel now, you probably, if these exercises have helped you, you'll feel that whatever your pain, achiness, tightness was before, it's better. Okay. And that is, now here's the thing. It doesn't mean that your back is cured, but the more you do these exercises, especially if you're starting to feel back stiffness, the stronger and more stable your back will get. And I'm not going to get into why we're using isometric holds instead of doing like 50,000 reps, but use the isometric holds, experiment with them. I'm telling you, it's a secret. Look into it. Actually, don't look into it. There's not that much good. There's not that much great information on isometrics on the internet. And I learned this from my buddy. I've learned some of these, not these particular exercises, but the whole approach to isometrics that I use. Like, for example, how many sets should you do? Should you do 10-second, how long should you hold the reps? He says to start with 10-second holds. And then you can work up to even a hold of 1 minute. Now, you don't want to do 10 reps of 1 minute, but you can do 2 to 3 sets of 1 minute holds if you want to experiment with those. Just be careful. I like the 10-second hold to begin with, right? So those are some examples of spinal stabilization exercises. I've got a ton of these that I do with clients. When they have an issue or an injury, I find something that works for them. And so these are just a couple that you can do seated. So you don't even have to do anything else, and you can improve your back. And it takes a couple minutes to do. And if, and again, if you've done these correctly, and if they're helping with that position because you have some weak adductors, because you have some weak abductors, you're going to feel a difference in that subjective pain scale, the 1 to 10 thing, and you will feel a difference that you feel looser, even though you did exercise and not stretching. So I know that was a bit in depth, but again, that's what we're trying to do here. Now, I'll talk about a few more things. You want to also improve your cardiovascular fitness. This helps circulation. So many of us, we don't realize we need to do more exercise, not less, but more lower intensity exercise, kind of like what we did just now with the holds. Maybe your hips are a bit fatigued, your adductors, the inner thigh muscles and the outer thigh muscles are a bit fatigued. And you'll probably notice like, oh, that feels pretty good. It's not like doing a lunge or a deadlift or anything like that, but you're feeling a bit looser. It just feels good, improves your circulation in that area. So improving your overall fitness will help. So getting up and one of the things that I love that I use to heal my back is I'll walk on the treadmill on incline. Now you can pedal, you can use the elliptical, but what you want to do is get yourself in the best cardiovascular shape you can, improve your circulation the best you can. Heart disease is the number one killer. Why am I mentioning that when we're talking about pain? Well, it's because cardiovascular fitness in particular boosts brain function. We talked about that in the brain episode. It helps lower stress. It helps you become more resilient and certainly helps with circulation. All things that can lead to better, less pain. Again, it's not that your back pain isn't all in your back. It's your back is part of your body, and your brain is even connected to it through the nerves. Okay, think about that. Another thing that cardiovascular fitness can do is it helps encourage better sleep. In fact, that's the next thing that we're going to talk about here. Patients suffering from chronic pain often find their problems are compounded by messed up sleep. In fact, among those with chronic pain, an estimated 50 to 80% have ongoing sleep difficulties. And I'll tell you, I've been here. Pain makes it hard to fall asleep. And we've already talked about how back pain is the most common type of chronic pain problem, and it's the most common medical disorder in industrialized societies. So not surprisingly, more than half of individuals with back pain frequently report significant issues with their sleep. So think about this. So you have back pain, and research has shown that disrupted sleep will in turn make chronic back pain worse. Why? Well, a lack of restorative sleep also hampers the body's immune response and can affect cognitive function. Remember, it's the biopsychosocial model. And this develops into a vicious cycle where back pain disrupts one's sleep, and then difficulty sleeping makes the pain worse, which in turn makes it sleeping more difficult. Does that sound like your life? I know it sounded like my life used to be like that. And on top of it all, right, what we're talking about here is something called central sensitization. What this means is the pain and the lack of sleep causes your nervous system to amplify pain signals and makes the pain worse. Okay? It's called central sensitization. Now, some things that you can do are meditation to help you sleep better. Again, if you are one of those people suffering from feelings of loneliness, and by the way, loneliness doesn't mean that you're all by yourself. That's what social isolation is. Loneliness, it means feelings of loneliness. And interestingly, people who are in a household of more than two people report more feelings of loneliness than people with two or less people in the household, right? Because it seems like you can kind of get lost, right? And feel like, a lot of women complain of not putting themselves first and feeling lost. Guys feel that way too. at times, although in my experience, it's most common that women report that. But this is something that can help. It can help with your sleep. It can help reduce the reactivity of your nervous system and help you reduce inflammation. And the last thing I want to talk about here, and I know we're quite sciencey, right? And we're getting deep into some sciencey realm here, but I hope it's starting to paint a better picture of what's going on. The last thing I want to talk about is one of the best ways to decrease inflammation is not to start taking curcumin or turmeric or taking omega-3 fatty acids or taking collagen protein, which I'm actually a fan of, or taking any of the other things that are marketed to you to reduce pain, or eating anti-inflammatory foods. One of the best things, perhaps even the best thing to lower inflammation, is to lose body fat. Losing body fat will help you lower inflammation. So many of us were like, I don't know why I feel terrible. Well, you're 30, 40, 50 plus pounds overweight. You're like, no, I'm not. I'm telling you, if you think you got 10 pounds to lose, it's probably 20 or 30. I mean, for me to get under 8% body fat, I'm 5'11" and a half. I was 210 pounds. I had to lose 30 pounds to get under 8% body fat. 30 pounds. It's one of the things that happen when my clients are losing fat. They're like, whoa, I lost 10 pounds. I thought I was going to be ripped. And then they lose another 20. They're like, damn, I'm not ripped yet. It's like, yep. Yeah, you're in the normal, some people, they go from normal to overweight when they lose 20 pounds. They don't even get out of the overweight category. Some people lose 40 pounds and they are still in the obese category. So it really is important to pay attention to your BMI. And if you want to dial it in a bit more, pay attention to your body fat percentage, which is a little bit harder to get at, especially these days with the COVID and the DEXA scans not being as available. But having a DEXA scan, having an in-body scan or a Bob pod or a hydrostatic weighing, that would help you get an idea of exactly where you are. But of course, you can just look up, you can type in your height, your weight, and the letters BMI into the Google search or DuckDuckGo, whatever you're into. And you can read about where you are. It'll give you your BMI and you'll get your rating. Now, if you want to lose body fat, we're not going to get into that because we're already deep into some things here. I've given you a ton of stuff to try. But what I would tell you is you need to dial in those calories. You need to dial in the amount of exercise you're doing. And if you're not losing fat, you're not doing something right. So don't blame your age, metabolism, hormones, etc. You know, if you're 90 years old, you will lose fat if you don't, if we put you on a desert island with nothing to eat. It doesn't matter what your age is or whether you're pre or post-menopausal or what your testosterone level is or what your estrogen level is, right? None of that stuff matters, right? In fact, what we know is that it seems that excess body fat is what throws off your testosterone levels if you're a man, and it's what throws off your estrogen and progesterone levels if you're a woman, okay? Lose the fat. It isn't helping you. And doesn't mean you need to be cover model ready. It just means prioritize this stuff. Get it handled if you care about your health. Because if you're overweight or obese and you're like, yeah, but I drink my Organifi. Okay, I'm a fan of that. I eat vegetables. Okay, I'm a fan of that too. But it's just at the end of the day, it's not about the potions or the greens powders or how many green shakes or the acai or the turmeric that you put in your cooking or whatever it is. It's about getting rid of that inflammatory body fat because it's secreting inflammatory chemicals. We know from scientific research, this is what's happening. The cytokine storm. So anyway, one thing that you can do is you can join the fasting challenge. In fact, if you're experiencing some pain in your back or even another area, the most powerful thing that I've ever tried, which I shared in my fasting series, was doing a fast, doing what would be called a short-term fast. So if you are up for that, my team and I have been working on putting together this new 5-day fasting challenge. It's for free. The challenge, me helping you through it, is for free, but you will have to buy the 5-day fasting mimicking diet kit called Prolon. So in this challenge, that's what we're going to be using, this patented 5-day fasting mimicking diet. I have it right here. I've never done it before. Really excited to try it. The fast is going to kick off on September 12th. So what you want to do is go to legendarylifepodcast.com/fasting. And then you'll receive all the details on how to get the Prolon, where to sign up for the Facebook group, where to join the challenge, and a special code that will give you $25 off on the Prolon. But again, we're kind of limiting the number of people who are going to be part of this. So if you're ready to do something not super extreme, because I talked about, I don't like water fasting. I never say never, but I don't see myself ever really doing that. But if you give me some food and tell me, hey, listen, you're going to get the same benefits, you're going to lower the inflammation, you're going to experience some autophagy, and you don't have an eating disorder or late stage cancer or heart issues, then this is something that is worth trying, especially if you're dealing with, like me, some musculoskeletal issues or musculoskeletal issues, for my friends across the pond and perhaps in across the border up north. So again, go to legendarylifepodcast.com/fasting to get all the details about the challenge and how to where to buy Prolon and the special code that'll give you $25 off. All right, I hope you enjoyed today. Please try out some of the things that we talked about. Check out your ergonomic setup or lack thereof at your home workstation. Try some of the, again, you don't have to believe me on this stretching thing. Don't believe me. Try it out. I mean, I know it works. So if you don't, so if you didn't get results, you did it wrong. But and don't overdo the holds. You can easily inflame yourself if you overdo it, especially if that area is a bit touchy. Again, that's why professionals, that's why there's coaching, that's why there's physical therapists. So don't be foolish. Stop if you're feeling any pain, but definitely try things out. Definitely look into your sleep. Look into some of the social aspects. Remember, pain is in your brain, and there's a biological, a psychological, and a sociological component to the pain you're experiencing. Make sure you address them holistically. And if you want to do that challenge and see if you can experience what I experienced, lowering of inflammation, and more specifically, less achiness and pain, and like, oh, wow, I don't feel as old as I did before the challenge, then go to legendarylifepodcast.com/fasting. Again, legendarylifepodcast.com/fasting, and join us for the fasting challenge. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a great week, and I will speak to you on Friday.